The fantasy film Dragonslayer, directed by Matthew Robbins, released in cinema in 1981. Despite having an $18 million budget, it only raked in around $14 million across theaters. However, much like something like The Dark Crystal, it over time gained a lot of popularity and a cult following. Even for people who didn't like the film itself, they could at least admit that the practical effects used for the film were absolutely phenomenal. And the star of this conversation was none other than the dragon herself, Vermithrax Pejorative. It's almost hard to begin with something so phenomenal. At the time of the film's release, dragons have been taking a big break from most cinema. The ones that usually did pop up were either in animated movies or animated into live action. This was the prime motivation for screenwriter Hal Barwood and director Matthew Robbins. And the many who did see the movie in theaters often praised the horror that Vermithrax brought with her. And most of this horror has to be attributed to her design. A full quarter of the $18 million budget was just for her. For the close-up shots, a full-scale dragon head, neck, and shoulders were built for her. Much like how the later Jurassic Park film would utilize this technique, they were used for the eyes, nostrils, and mouth of the dragon. They used go-motion animation for the more complex shots like her running or chasing. Due to the sheer amount of special effects that would be needed, they hired many artists. One of the most notable being Brian Johnson, who had worked on both Empire and Alien. And most of this wonder is assigned to David Bunnett, the lead concept design artist. Unlike most designs at the time, the dragon was designed with anatomical realism, drawing from real-world reptiles, birds, and even pterosaurs. The Jurassic pterosaur Rhamphorhynchus was also a notable inspiration for Hal Barwood. Her design was made to be as believable as it was horrifying. Instead of giving her a hexapodal form like most dragons, they opted to give her wing arms and only 2 legs. As in real life, no hexapodal vertebrates have existed. Another interesting thing to note was that Vermithrax was not colored until they found a set location to film in. Phil Tippett, one of the special effects artists hired to create miniatures of Vermithrax's flying model, describes going out to the film stages, picking up handfuls of slate and rock, and then going back to the painting area to derive some similar colors. She was designed to have soaring-type wings, as those were the only wings that could plausibly lift her up. Her neck was long and sinuous, her frame was thin and gaunt, and her chest was heavy to support a keel. All in all, she was designed to be extremely realistic. However, design alone wasn't the only end of her realism, as instead of guarding treasure, she guarded her eggs. Instead of framing Vermithrax as a mindless evil, easy to kill without any repercussions, they frame her as tragic. When Galen kills her chicks, she flies into a rage. Not at any treasure being stolen, but at her actual treasure being killed. The last of her kind, Vermithrax is an age doomed to end, no matter how much she kicks and screams. In one of the scenes, a character named Ulrich describes that she is likely in constant pain due to her age.
Scales, these ridges. When the dragon gets this old, it knows nothing but pain, constant pain. He grows decrepit, crippled, pitiful, spiteful.
Vermithrax feels, acts, and looks like a real creature, and that is due to these efforts. And that, in turn, amplifies the horror aspect that the designers were aiming for. Much like Jaws or Jurassic Park, she was something that was real, tangible, and horrifying. And so it's no surprise that, despite the box office bomb, she went on to cast legacies down the dragon line. Notable people like Del Toro and author George R.R. Martin have both cited Vermithrax as one of their favorite on-screen dragons, with George R.R. Martin even saying that it was the best dragon to ever be put on film. The teams of Reign of Fire, the 2002 movie about a dragon apocalypse, cited Vermithrax herself as the main inspiration for their dragons, wanting her to be bulkier and more robust. Reign of Fire itself was an inspiration for many other dragons to come, especially the fire-breathing techniques that they used, being 2 jets of chemicals that mated in the middle to create an explosion. Indeed, without Vermithrax's influence, many of these iconic designs would not exist, and many of the inspirations that came after would also cease. Dare I say it even accounts to video games as well, like Skyrim's dragons, or Monster Hunter's wyverns. The best way to tell a realistic story about a monster is by giving it as much realism as possible. It proves that as time marches onward, Vermithrax is the true mother of all dragons. To give a personal take about Vermithrax, I think that she is fantastic. She is just the epitome of everything right with monster design. It might be some of my ecology major speaking here, but I feel like whenever you put in biological principles in your monster design, it really, really shines through. Although you do have to do it. You do have to do it right, though.